And the purpose of this talk is to generally make you aware that kids on screen too much will ruin their career potential, curriculum will get stuck, and their choices and behavior will change drastically. So this evening I am meeting a girl from the same school, and the parents' worry is that she's all the time inside the room, windows, doors closed. And from the time she comes from home, that she's on the phone, doesn't join in any meal, and doesn't take normal food times at all. But thankfully, parents have engaged her. So she's very friendly with the parents. And on the way from school, she will say, let's go to this place and eat some junk, And again, if she feels like it, at about 7 o'clock, she will say, let's go somewhere and eat something. So, but thankfully, the parents have kept close to her. So you can see out there it could be so different, their world. How many of you have, you look pretty young, how many have children under the age of 10? Over the age of 10? Yeah. So their brain begins to be affected by the digital screen from day dot, even from the mother's womb. If a mother is too much on the digital screen, particularly violent music that you are involved with, then the fetus will begin to have secretions of prostaglandin in the fetus while the child is in the womb, and accordingly the brain will wire fellow feels thrill, unsafety, risk inside the brain. So that when he is born, he is expecting trouble, and he is. Pardon? Prostaglandins. Yeah. I normally do a little pep up like this. Prostaglandins. I'm not sure whether it's up here. You will come across in some slide here. Whatever is, you are recording this, I am recording this, so I'll send back this clip. So the child's brain develops according to what prostaglandins are working in which part of the brain. And that is very closely connected to mother's behavior. For instance, a child will never kick while in the womb if the mother is asleep. And if a mother wakes up because the little fellow kicked in the womb, then you must go and see an obstetrician because the child is in distress. The baby is so connected to the mother. If you get up from a kick from inside, that means he's having trouble. Why I said that is, the child is so linked to the mother's health and mother's ways. So bonding while you are pregnant is also important. So you speak to the fellow as if he understands. If you are praying kind, you pray, you sing, and you should sing the beat like Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. The 1, 2, 3, 4 beat. If you sing the 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, little fellow will feel like that in the womb. Got the point? So your digital life, what you are watching on the screen, gets affected according to your adrenal cortical hormone, and the thrill you feel, it's conveyed to the little one. So he's looking for the mother's voice, and even the father's voice he recognizes while in the womb. Exactly how the science connects is not known, but more than when we were in medical faculty, as students now we know there are lots of perigenetic factors that affect a child's behavior. So whether the child is becoming autism spectrum inside, whether the child is trying to move into ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, all that is conveyed while he is in the womb. So when he is born also, mother must bond as much as possible, because early bonding, as you know, is with mom. So that early brain development and IQ potential has to do with mom's, not just mom's IQ, how much mom bonds with the little fellow. At the age of 3, of course, the dad must interact more and more. So dad moves in with next step and next challenge. So mother makes it daily safe, But the boundaries, next stretch, the dad must give from very young days. So catch the fellow when he's toddling, try to get him to get up and from tricycle to bicycle, those thrilling moments for the little fellow. Dad must introduce next step, next thrill, so that when they are passing 13, 14, they will say, I have to ask dad. If you are too busy in your corporate and suddenly wake up to teenage problems, you're too late. Something can be done, but I want to pitch this point so that from young days you are bonding and so on. So we will get to the slides now. This I prepared particularly because I had a Zoom talk with the parents of the school that was affected. So I did with them on Saturday and Sunday. That's why the topic is slanted that way. Otherwise, it used to be a regular talk on how the digital screen affects career, curriculum, choices and character. Career, curriculum, choices and character. It drastically affects. Now, of course, we have the added problem of the risk-taking behavior, which I said from 2012, but schools kept thinking it is okay. Teachers knew the problem. Then dad is too busy in the corporate, and if mother also becomes too busy, it becomes a tragedy. And they keep postponing, it's okay. And the medical profession got to giving drugs to any problem, isn't it? My last post as head of Department of Pharmacology in the faculty. So I'm trained in neurochemistry, that was my research area. So when these children were getting jittery, somehow their eyes behave like the pixel screen. It's a clinical feature. So if you bring a child to me, I can tell roughly this child is at least 1, 2, 3 hours on the phone or all the time on the phone. Because parents put the child on the screen from young days. Whereas language forms by children doing what they hear, building blocks, matty molding, toddling along. If you have a padura rather than the flow, the padura has ridges, or a lanu padura even with a sari or a sarong, depending on who is cleaner. Got it? That was supposed to be a joke. Sari or a sarong, depending on who has better health habits. Who do you think has better health habits at home? Dad or mom? Depends, okay, that's a safe answer. So what I am saying is when the little fellow is, his feet, toes and fingers are touching those ridges, his brain is appreciating that, and that's how brain tracks form, even for writing and language. So taking the shapes, that's why we give art, that's why we give building blocks. Their fingers are doing shapes. Did you understand that? Fingers are doing shapes all the time with matty molding and puzzles and whatnot. That is how language also forms. And they have to hear the language, and language has to be formed, not by looking at the screen. So till about the age of 5, they pick up things like parrots. They hear a rhyme, they say it. So parents think they are brilliant because they are putting the child on the screen. All they hear on the screen, they will mouth it like parrots. But come to 6 and 7 years, their language has not formed, phonemes haven't formed, they don't know to speak. So the little fellow finds that he can't say what he wants to say. So to my empathic learning center, about 1/3 kids come with parents at the age of 6 and 7 because the child is not speaking as he used to speak, because now he can't make the language and speak. And in front of me, he tries to hit the mother. Why is that? He intuitively feels, mom should have saved me from this trouble. Pathetic to see how he wants to say it, he can't say it. So a lot of speech defects or speech deficiencies are due to children being on the screen. That is scientific advice. So now the American Academy of Pediatrics have said, do not give the screen at all from the age of 3. Under the age of 3, I would say under the age of 5. At present, Denmark, Sweden, France, and yesterday, Britain is trying to ban social media in the school-going age. I don't know how you can do it now, but they are waking up even late to the trouble. Okay, so this was the particular These are the causes, because this was at a time suicide was being spoken about. I slanted my slide presentation and talk on Saturday to this. Now remember, the background thing is that the child is already dissociated from reality. Parents are not interacting with them. They are in a selfie world with their peers. So if you don't attend on your kid and born before 13, when teenage comes and hormones change, they just completely change overnight and parents get alarmed. So you have to expect that change. Now the change becomes worse because they are completely with the phone, digitized, and with friends who are equally digitized. So these factors are actually provocative or precipitant factors in the background of digitized risk-taking behavior. You understood that, isn't it? So these factors are bullying, academic failure, feeling pressure to overachieve. Thank you, Roshan, for making the slides look good. My slides are those of an academic, it's just fact. But these look nice. They look handsome. Feeling pressure to overachieve. Inside them also there's a pressure to overachieve. Because every digital game you can win, you must win. And you must beat the other chap. Now they are in groups that they are online doing games all the time, so you must win. They can't face failure because the digital game is, earlier digital games are set up to win. Competition comes later. So they think life is all about not missing anything. We have to win all the time. Can't fail, can't take defeat. Did you understand that? You are owning the subject. Or you are just listening?
There is another thought.
Yes.
Compared to Gen Xers and the generations. Because of the digital, I'm just talking the pluses, they always talk about the negative, is that people can be very decisive because they have to make decisions when you're in gaming, and this is, now we're talking about digital. But we also spoke about, when before digital came in, they always found that leadership position in organizations, they found that switch towards having people who play sport. Now this was something that we saw in this big countermeasures, although they were not studied. They took a lot of people who came from a sports background because on the basis that the sports field made you make decisions. So these are things I have read also, that the main factor of playing this game is also making decisions.
Difference is this.
Yes.
With sports you make decisions in a team and you make decisions for the benefit of others. Digital games are completely individual decisions with a very fixed goal. We will come to a question time and we will clarify it a little more.
This is, again, we are things we always talk about the negatives. What are the positives also? Maybe that's what, if it is a positive,
So we are looking at 5 generations now. The ex-gens who made this world like this, the generals who they thought of it, they did it, and they created companies and movements. Then you had the Xennials, who are now 45 years old, who saved the world from these impossible generals. Generals were necessary. They did things like war. So we have 3 generals here, your boss, myself, and Roshan. We are from that generation. Those fellows made the world. Whether you liked it or not, that's how it happened. Then thankfully came the Xennials. My daughter is also a medical specialist and she was head of Department of Family Medicine. They are 45, 47. They realize if they don't step in and bridge the gap between millennials, the Y generation and this X, world will crash. Thankfully, they began to understand the new drive of the millennials, the Y generation, and how the Xers worked, and they stood in the gap and made the world to go on. Then came the Z Gen, the Gen Zs, who are now 25, 28. They want to be entrepreneurs themselves. They want to do business themselves. So if everybody wants to do business by themselves, take quick decisions, there won't be corporates at all. There won't be hospitals at all. Agreed? Hospitals need a lot of people working together as a team. So if the Gen Z, quick decisions and they wanting to do their own enterprises and entrepreneurship, we need to encourage. But if all go that way, you will not have institutions. It's okay not to have hospitals, correct? Got the point? So we have to balance it. And thankfully, still doctors are being produced, isn't it? And doctors have to make decisions in team. And you have to work with nurses, you have to work with consultants, you have to work, surgeons and physicians have to work together. A lot of team activity and team thinking has to go on even in a research team. So even in the Gen Z, all are not thinking of doing business by themselves. Correct? If all think of doing my own business, that will not work. So President, I listened to a talk by the President, it's good to listen to it. He says, I am addressing the generation that is independent in thinking. I am addressing the generation that is creative in thinking. I am addressing the generation who are entrepreneurs by themselves. Now the whole world can't go that way. There has to be balance in it also. So this feeling, pressure to overachieve, poor or inappropriate coping skills come directly from the screen and non-interaction with others. Because you do it, you did it or you don't do it. So they don't have coping skills that when failure comes or the course changes. A family history of suicide will obviously contribute to the suicide issue. Now, I don't want you to get fixed on this because this is a recent problem this was a problem that was there. So you as an organization that's handling young fellows may have to face up to it. But I am more into what I first said, digital screen effects. What are the 4 things? Curriculum choices, character and career. So we have to have a balanced population of young fellows passing from 16 with O-level if they would take a course or whatever, or O-level to A-level, and what do they do? Having done A-level, go to university, what do they do? So at each of those points, fruitful, long-lasting, vocationally oriented decisions have to be taken. If not, they will be changing fields all the time, and even at the age of 33, they don't know what they are supposed to do. Whereas a kid must know what they are supposed to do by 23, latest 24. Whether you are in business, whether you are in IT, whether you are in medicine, law, whatever, they must be ready with their future career at 24, and then hopefully by 33, you have been fruitful, you have multiplied, you have filled up what you should fill up by 33, and by 43, you are successful. Since you are successful, at 43 you are thinking of making others successful, which is your phase of significance, making others successful. So you are thinking of stewarding the best for others at 43. That would be what you will be remembered for, that you made space, time, career, curriculum for others. But by 43, that you have achieved, because from 23 to 43 you have had a clear course track, what you are going to do. That's how satisfaction will come. This is about how you choose your career and stick with it. Family history of violence or sexual abuse, changes in family structure, obviously this will affect the children. Okay, Omtya. Thank you. Discrimination at school level or home level. Sometimes the second child in a family feels didn't have enough opportunity because the first was attended on, third arrived too soon. So remember the middle child syndrome. Sometimes this ugly duckling syndrome, that is for some reason, horoscope said it, or from the time this child was born it didn't go well for us. There are things like that that affect even in a family how children feel. So remember that about discrimination. Discrimination is not only in schools, it could be in different settings. So in this present crisis, I told the parents, don't go bashing the school because already kids have a community in school. Especially if you did not give them community at home, parents are so busy, kids make community at home. So if you keep bashing what they now feel is community, you are removing the only support they have. Did you understand that? So my counsel to parents is, in this present crisis, step in gently, learn the problem and learn to support and adjust the schools for better performance. By and by, attend on the child's need first. Then if a community has gone through violence, that the kids of that community, because of race, caste or religion, they'll already feel under stress and discriminated, and those children can try to make risky choices fast. Disruption of friendships, social networks caused by moving out of school or out of neighborhood, having an unrealistically high expectation of themselves. This is what the screen pushes them to. As I said, you must win the game. Whereas sports, we are taught at the beginning, win or lose, play the game, isn't it? That's the axiom of sports. And you get ready for that here. And the experience of a team doing well together is part of the sports thing. It's not an individualistic thing. Having unrealistically high expectations, experiencing loss at a young age, such as the death of a parent. Some kids are very attached to pets also. So death of a pet also can fling them into what is the meaning of death, my best friend died, that kind of melancholy also comes. A few other causes that you already know: lack of access to healthcare or education, having chronic illness or disability. The child is already doesn't like herself because she's having wheezing or whatever it is, or a different other disability. Psychiatric disorders, very common to have kids with OCD, obsessive compulsive behavior, all the time washing hands and that kind of thing. At present in Sri Lanka, psychiatric consultations are 30% are under the age of 19. That is far too high. And our medical profession is addicted to prescribing drugs. We don't have clinical psychologists. And the GMOA does not allow clinical psychologists to be recognized. Clinical psychologists are trained to listen to kids or whoever, or adults, and manage them without psychiatric drugs. So this is the thing in which we have to train our doctors. So don't think taking a child with a language issue or behavioral issue or study difficulty to doctors and giving many drugs is the therapy. It is not. I just recently met with two parents. Their son is 15 years old, and I said, how many doctors have you gone to? 9 or 10. I said, why do you love that? The father said, I can't help it, doctor. My wife insists on going to another one. So the fellow is on 7 different drugs. Psychiatric drugs, you have to prescribe one at a time. This is pharmacology. So you know how it goes. You're already familiar. So that's another problem we are facing. Finally, digital addiction causing no-show at exams, failing parental expectation, failing your potential. All these things are in the background. Now, the digitization. I have said some of these things. Let's see whether this recall is useful. Recent research calls digital addiction electronic cocaine. Teens on digital games attempt perfection, win every time, can't fail. Parents feed, perform or perish, run their races through children. Digital games shift kids from top down You can't do this on LED screen. You can't. Yeah, that's okay. Digital games shift kids from top-down empathic executive thinking to set up the thrill-seek repetitive bottom-up track. I have a graphic on this. We think, plan, executive decision-making from our prefrontal cortex, this top it's called top down because you think and do. But if we get into risk behavior, like listener on a banana skin, have you slipped on a banana skin or a mango skin? You just do it without thinking, isn't it? So we have a track God has given in our brain for that kind of exigency. These kids all the time begin to live on that bottom-up regulation. What is the bottom-up regulation? Whatever that comes, they respond to it. Risk, sound, color, music. So that works through amygdala, hippocampus and hypothalamus. It's a bit like the soldier who goes berserk in the foxhole. Have you heard that thing? They just start shooting because they feel stress. So these kids, because of the digital game, sometimes the violence, anyway the pixel screen stimulates our brain wrong. Because with the pixel screen, you have blue frequency coming out, blue light. Same with LED lights. That disturbs your melatonin secretion in the brain after 6 p.m. Melatonin starts secreting after 6 p.m. to get your nighttime brain refurbishing programs. It's a God's Dreamweaver program in the brain. I don't use God if I'm in a completely secular environment, but in good schools like St. Thomas's, which is the best, and St. Joseph, which is the second best. Is that all right? I have done talks at St. Joseph's also. St. Bridget's and Ladies Methodist, you are free to bring in the fact that God had a good design in brain. But when I go to Sampath Bank or someplace, I can't. I have to be careful. So it depends on the corporate entity. I may use a bit of God's design. If not, I don't go that way. These kids have got used to this acting on impulse. Now we have paninta pera sita balanu. These kids have got used to sitannata pera panala balamu. It can be with gambling internet. It can be the way they use money. It can be sexual behavior. It can be just risk-taking. So you are aware of the Blue Whale app that said, go to the highest place in the city? A dolphin something, isn't it? It was the last mission, is to go to the highest place in the city and jump. So just before COVID, a boy did it from the Dialogue building, if you remember. That's the time the Blue Whale app thing came. So similar things are included in a digital challenge as the last step. Often they take a selfie before the jump also. So it's well planned. It's not like normal suicide where you're angry and you suddenly do it. It's well planned and it becomes part of a increasing challenge. And Lotus Tower, 29th floor, was 250 meters, probably the highest accessible in Colombo. So that's why that was chosen. Went to school as normal and went there after school, dodging the father who came to pick her up, and tried the place, changed the clothing, kept the school bag nicely, and so it was so well thought out, not in haste. So there's a long process of suicide prevention and suicide post-venture. What do you do after that? What should the school do? What should the parents do? And so on. Yeah. So this is about getting children back into, or adults, this kind of proper executive empathic decision-making process is what we do in our empathic learning center. It is doable. When things go wrong, father has to get involved. Mother makes it daily safe. Father keeps the boundaries. If boundaries are invaded, father has to get involved. So when I always insist mom and dad both must come. My secretary will tell so. Since my consultations I don't charge money, I can insist. So dad usually says he has JCs, he has this, he has that, he has gym and all kinds of rubbish. But he doesn't get an appointment unless he doesn't come. So finally he comes and he sits in front of my consultation table as if this is not his subject. Usually son or daughter sits in the middle. So mom is all, she's gung-ho. Then I turn to the father and say, what is your daughter's best subject? Then he sheepishly turns. Whom is she turning to? The mom. He doesn't know. So I persecute him for about 3 minutes, asking the questions from him. Then he understands he has to own the problem. No, I'm not nasty, but any fathers here? Yeah. Feeling guilty? Yeah, that's the purpose of this talk. So anyway, I make friends with him, and then I start talking science to the kid, draw graphics, and they get immediately interested. That's how then we send them for therapy, and we recommend that we have a 2,400 square feet fourth floor, which has, I'll show a clip, which has all the grips and ropes, things that a kid can do. It looks like a challenge. It looks like an exciting, thrilling thing. If we can get them on that for 40 minutes, then their brain dopamine begins to come down. We'll get to that now. So kids shift from dopamine 1 physiological receptor to dopamine 2 sustained addictive action when on the pixel screen. That's just what cocaine does. Before questions, I'll do a little more of the digital stimulant effect. Has 5 components. How long the kid is on the screen. Then how strong the PPI, pixels per inch, of the gadget. Rate of pixel change in the cartoon or in the digital games. Are you able to absorb this? Yeah. It's a sequential thing, so it shouldn't be difficult to absorb. Intensity and variability of sound and color. So these kids often say we study better, we stay in one place if we are listening to music. So they always have earphones plugged in. But they are not studying, they are staying in one place. You can't study and listen to music at the same time. But if you put a kid to do an instrument, particularly string instruments, and he sings and plays in between, that develops brain tracks also for study. Music is mathematics, you probably know that. So we always encourage parents to put a child into singing and a musical instrument early. But while studying, if you are listening to music, you will not remember anything you studied. Where music stimulates another temporal lobe, whereas we are supposed to study from our prefrontal cortex. Yes. You may be thinking, how much does the screen affect adults? What the screen does to a child in about 45 minutes, with your age, it takes about 3 hours, adults, because children's brain tracks are far more susceptible to the pixel effect, but it affects us also. So if you are on an 8K, 4K screen, glued to the screen, looking at some very fast changing things with very disturbing sounds, you will not sleep properly. You will wake up grouchy. So there are many 40-year-old male boys who get up grouchy in the morning because of too much screen activity. Who is the 40-year-old male boy in the home? The Hubson. Yeah. So this is about the pixel screen effect. Then anything after 6 p.m. Fast digital activity will disturb sleep more and more. So you have to teach children, please do studies only after 6 p.m. on the screen. Unfortunately, sometimes kids are on online studies and tuition classes even after 10 p.m., which is not a good thing. Then there are things you can do to prevent getting digitized while learning on the screen. There's a special slide on it, such as if you get your son or daughter to have a lanupedura, or you know what a lanupedura is, and without shoes, just to scratch on it while studying, the lanupedura stimulation keeps, there's a certain neurological action that keeps the brain getting digitized. Similarly, if you munch pear, apple is also good, but pear is cheap, isn't it? Yeah. And then use tweezers if the kids are long studying on the online screen. Also, I advise them not to look at the screen if it doesn't need to, just listen only. So those are some things that screen and study. Multitasking, sleep deprivation, many digital platforms, many gadgets, isn't it? They're on the laptop, they're on iPad, they're doing all kinds of things with the smartphone at the same time, is not good. So we have to train parents somehow to not fight with kids, because this generation will fight back. So you have to be on their side, speak improvement. You can't speak condemnation to them. You have to speak appreciation, and you have to always say, darling, shall we do it like this? Can we improve like this? You have to talk improvement language. You can never say to them, you are wrong. You can't say like that. It will start a fight. There is a neuron, and different neurons work with different chemicals at the neuron end. We were talking about dopamine. There's serotonin that gives satisfaction. Different neurons for different purposes. This is how we think and do for 1 hour. You decide to do something, initiation, navigation, successful in conclusion, good reward. Who's saying good reward? Inside you. What is happening? We work with dopamine for 45 minutes, thinking or doing. Then dopamine comes down in our brain tracts. Serotonin begins to work, helping us to check back, how do I improve what I studied? How do I improve what I have done? So serotonin talks, satiety, well done, reward, improvement. That's how God has set our brain to think. Of course, we are not only brain, but I am saying how brain is working. But if the kid is on the digital screen with fast digital activity, dopamine doesn't come down. It keeps going up. That's why the screen is called electronic cocaine. Dopamine levels not only go up, dopamine levels also, the receptors shift to addictive. So when they are after about 1 hour on different screen activity, they only want to do more. There's a brain thing going on saying more, do more, do more. One more slide and then we can have a question answer time. So we have to restore this. Therapy for digital toxicity is getting them to do their 1 hour properly. So in the morning, dad sits with the daughter or son and says, darling, how is your day going to be? So till 2 o'clock school, 3 o'clock come back, 3 to 4 sports. It's a rough timetable. You bring the child's friend, 4 to 5 what, 5 to 6 what, 6 to 7. You are getting the child to think 1 hour at a time. So in that 1 hour, there's something pleasant that child has to do, 45 minutes of study or whatever, 15 minutes of a nice thing. Then if you musma, you have to say, before 6 o'clock, you have to give a digital slot. Maybe 20 minutes max. I'm not recommending that, but if you can't get away from it. But then you may find many kids at the stage of who cares, and their language also changes. Morning they get up, they can't remember what they studied, so their school is stupid, book is stupid, teacher is stupid. So they use a lot of harsh language like that. One more slide, and these are the 2 tracks I cited. One is how we should be doing, prefrontal cortex, top-down regulation. What do you see written there? The decision-making process. Executive, next, empathic, reflective, creative, initiation, navigation, end conclusion, reward, decision, what you made it and you did it. This takes 45 minutes, and next 15 minutes you reflect. How did I do it? How do I improve? Connection, collation, recall. All this we do normally without being told. But the digital screen will scramble all that because you want to do only the digital stuff again and again. When the kids get digitized, they move on to this other track, which is, the amygdala is on the bottom of the brain. That's why it's called bottom-up regulation. Child is in dyspathy. What is dyspathy? I don't care, I don't like anything, fool is stupid, this wretched home, Parents useful, teachers useless. You know, they go thinking like, and they actually think like that. So you can see how much hate, dyspathy, don't like, face also don't like, how much they think like that, isn't it? Yeah. Then they are impulsive, sitannata pera panala balamu, repetitive, reflexive, their language can be violent, hyperactive, reactive, they are into stress, thrill, and all, anti-reward is a brain condition. You see, now dopamine thrill, it's no more thrilling. Then they want to do something, then they cut themselves. Kids come, those who have cut themselves. And why are they cutting? When you cut yourself, the endorphins, the natural pain-resolving substances get secreted. Then they feel cool, because the opium-like substances brain has to reduce pain when we get pain, natural pain, you know. They learn to cut themselves and get endorphins working. This is a little bit of complex pharmacology. Now, after a while, that is not enough. Then what do? They move to substance abuse, where they have to get outside cocaine or opium or opiates or whatever. So that's about the field. Now you can ask the questions.
Can we go from side to side from the start? Then
Yes.
might be able to
Yes.
You had a video also, was it?
Yes. This is this. Yeah, they part of what we do when kids come. This is a video of activity when kids come.